pacing is a management strategy that's used for chronic fatigue conditions. And it can be summed up with concepts like be very careful of what you do, don't overdo it, pay close attention to your fatigue, and prioritize your day based on essentials. And they'll often talk about concepts of an energy envelope, stay within it, and concepts around spoons, if you're familiar with the concepts. So what do I think of pacing as a strategy to manage chronic fatigue conditions? I think it's brilliant. I think it's a brilliant management strategy. It avoids the boom and the bust cycles that often come with chronic fatigue conditions. It allows a sense of control and predictability, which is essential. So as a way to manage chronic fatigue conditions, brilliant. And it has nothing to do with recovery. It is not a recovery tool, it is a management tool, and they are very different things. And what's also interesting is some of the habits that are formed by learning pacing can actually get in the way of recovery. So that's important to know. So having worked with lots of people that have come out of a pacing strategy and going on to recover, they'll often talk about some of the obstacles and things that they had to put aside in order to recover. So these are things like the hypervigilance that can be developed through pacing. So that's this paying close attention to your symptoms. We know the role that focus and attention plays in changing the brain and the nervous system. So the very act of paying close attention to symptoms changes the sensitivity of our nervous system. And to recover, we actually need to desensitize the nervous system. So the pacing strategies can get in the way of recovery. Another thing that people that have recovered after pacing talk about is they look back and realize the role that anxiety played in pacing, this fear of movement, this fear of overdoing it, and they developed anxiety. And again, we know the role that anxiety and stress hormones play in changing our brain and nervous system. And so you can get very good at pacing, but actually that can get in the way of recovery because recovery requires movement, and not fear-based movement, but confident movement. And lastly, another thing that people talk about is this fragility belief that is installed from pacing. This, I have to be careful, I'm fragile. And to recover, those beliefs need to be put aside to allow people to fully recover. So if you have nothing other than pacing as a strategy, please don't put it aside because it has absolute value and benefit. But it's useful to know that you won't pace your way into recovery. It's a management technique and a good technique for managing fatigue, but nothing to do with recovery.